Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have absolutely breaking news, as the Chechen blood feud is beginning to grow to an even larger head, as we've been able to hear that apparently drones have been launched from either Ingushetia or Dagestan into the territory of Chechnya, hitting a special forces training camp today and causing significant damage to a major center of training for the Chechen armed forces. At the exact same time, we've been able to hear that Romania is soon to pass legislation that will allow them to target and destroy Russian drones that have violated Romanian airspace near to the Danube River Delta. We've also been able to hear incredibly major news on top of that inside the Russian Federation that Vladimir Putin has announced the beginning of new nuclear military exercise drills today, with video footage coming out showing that the Russian Federation is once again testing its intercontinental ballistic missiles, a direct threat to the United States of America and the European alliance as a whole. Meanwhile, inside of the area of the Kursk Oblast, we have been able to hear that apparently North Korean officers will be soon to arrive on the front lines, with the North Korean Expeditionary Forces expected to be soon on their way to the area in larger numbers, and we will be waiting to see further and additional information about that, and also analyze North Korean combat effectiveness here in just a moment. Nevertheless, we've also been able to see that Ukrainian forces have conducted a major success today in striking and destroying an ammunition depot within the area of Luhansk, and not only that, we have also been able to hear of the Ukrainian F-16 in flight over the area of Ukraine. We also have some small annotations to be giving about the situation in the Middle East and also the Korean Peninsula as well. But getting into our major breaking news today, we were able to hear that Ramzan Kadyrov and his Chechen regime, if you want to call it that, inside of the Chechen Semi-Autonomous Republic, has come under attack today by a unknown drone fired from either Ingushetia or Dagestan, as we were able to see video and picture evidence showing that the Russian Special Forces building within this area was hit, and massive damage was caused. The fire spread immediately throughout the compound, engulfing it in flames and completely destroying it. According to the Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, he said that the strike hit the roof of an allegedly vacant building, and that the campus was, of course, completely burned to the ground. Nevertheless, it is interesting to see that a fire was started, and according to Ramzan Kadyrov, he has tried to shift the blame a little bit more so onto the Ukrainians than anyone, saying that this attack was a direct attack upon the sacred name of Putin himself, considering that the military university was named after Putin, and wanted to say that vengeance must be exacted. In fact, he even stated that the Chechens may go as far as not taking Ukrainian prisoners here in the near future. However, according to information that we have that was also published by the Kyiv Independent, the drone strikes on Chechnya were possibly launched from Dagestan or Ingushetia. And we are believing that these drones may be a continuation of the blood feud in between the Russian Federation's government and that of the Chechen government itself, led by Ramzan Kadyrov. The drone is one that we've never seen fly into this area. We have, in fact, never seen Ukrainian drones venture farther than the town of Stavropol in deep strikes conducted in the Russian Don region. The fact that a Ukrainian drone would be launched and reach the area of Chechnya is a pretty interesting one, and from the closest launch point inside of Ukraine, that drone would have had to have flown about 530 miles to be able to reach its target. Certainly not impossible by modern drone range metrics. We have seen Ukrainian drones hit nearly 800 miles into the Russian Federation, but nevertheless, it would be a first time ever, and we have not heard any Ukrainian government announcements saying that the strike was theirs and that there was any legitimate damage caused. Usually, those sorts of announcements are made almost during or immediately after a strike was to occur inside of the Russian Federation proper. Nevertheless, we have not heard such a thing from the attack that happened inside the semi-autonomous Republic of Chechnya, and this is leading us to believe that this drone was most likely launched by a force that was in the area of Dagestan, just to the east of Chechnya, or in Ingushetia, just to the west. We do understand that the Russian Federation's FSB forces are conducting counterinsurgency operations within these areas, and for this reason, they could have easily been the ones to have launched a drone into the area of Chechnya and struck the building and destroyed it. We also at the moment have no video and picture evidence to be able to show us what kind of a drone this exactly was. It could have been a Shahed 136 drone or a Garan, which is the license built variant or it could have been a Luhansk long-range drone. That information is simply not present. But with all the facts abound, knowing that the Ukrainians have never stricken into the area of the Caucasus mountain range directly with a drone, also knowing that Chechnya is currently involved in a blood feud with the Russian Federation's government, and 3 Russian service members were just gunned down inside of Chechen territory only 2 days ago, most likely by the order of Ramzan Kadyrov, along with the fact that it appears that the Russians have already been conducting some low-level retaliatory actions against the Chechen government, such as the gas station explosion inside of Chechnya, we are most likely going to be led to believe on this channel, at least if we were to suppose a theory, that the Russian Federation is most likely the one responsible for the drone attack that has currently hit the Special Forces training building inside of Chechnya. That Special Forces building is not used to train Russian Federation armed forces. It is actually used to train Chechen armed forces, and for this reason, it does mean that the Russian Federation may use this attack to once again signify a message that the Chechen armed forces are no match compared to the Russian Federation's armed forces in an open conflict. We'll be waiting to see if any further or additional information comes out. Hopefully, over the course of this day, we can find some additional video and picture evidence to show what kind of a drone was used in the attack, but for now, we don't really know, and we are leaning more towards this being a continuation of the Russian blood feud with Chechnya than anything else. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation appears to be trying to ramp up international tensions around the globe, as a second wave of new nuclear exercises, the second time this year, has just been announced by the Russian Federation, with this statement being made right here by the Russian Defense Minister Belousov.
В соответствии с планом подготовки вооруженных сил Российской Федерации под вашим руководством проводится тренировка по управлению вооруженными силами Российской Федерации, в ходе которой будут отработаны задачи нанесения массированного ядерного удара стратегическими наступательными силами в ответ на ядерный удар противника. Порядок проведения тренировки доложит начальник генерального штаба генерал армии Герасимов Валерий Васильевич.
Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, к тренировке...
Nevertheless, a lot of talking was had, and we actually got to see that the Penguin from the DC comic series is apparently present inside this Russian Ministry of Defense briefing, along with this guy, who I assume his name must be Boris, for he looks like he would be named Boris. Nevertheless, the Penguin, Boris, and also Belousov appear to have gotten together today and have announced that nuclear exercises will be conducted again, and video footage is already beginning to circulate. We would also like to mention, before we move on from this clip, that it appears that the Penguin has not only taken on a different life than the criminal life he had inside of the city of Gotham, it appears that he's also become a raging alcoholic, as we can see an entire bottle of vodka sitting on the desk, ready for the Penguin to consume at any moment. I will be trying to find out the actual name of the Penguin and figure out who this guy is, because we have never seen him before in any Russian Ministry of Defense briefing that has been made so far over the course of the war. This guy is a completely new addition. Moving on from that, however, we were able to see the video footage that was shown of the nuclear war drills being conducted, and we were able to see that once again it was a fairly normal drill as we have been seeing over time, with T'Pol-M intercontinental ballistic missile carriers being used in the test. When you see the missile being launched right here in its test. And in our next clip, we can also see an actual submarine launch test as well today. And in our last clip here, we can also see a nighttime test, once again by another submarine-launched intercontinental ballistic missile. These tests were conducted in the Barents and Okhotsk seas, just to the north of the Russian Federation. Nevertheless, these tests are not made to, of course, gauge the readiness of the Russian armed forces' nuclear abilities. That it would, of course, be a given. They are usually meant to give a subliminal threat to the Western world that Russia is nuclear armed and nuclear capable, ready to strike at any given moment against Western forces, either in Europe or in the area of North America, to be able to secure its strategic aims inside of Ukraine and throughout the greater Western world. This is something that should be put into note by many people, that the Russian Federation is once again waving the nuclear sword against the West to try and achieve its own wishes. If it was able to achieve its own wishes, it should do that conventionally, as showing nuclear weapons generally at this point is a large sign of weakness. The Russian Federation has done very poorly in Ukraine, taking nearly 3 years to hold the ground that they gained at the very onset, and since that time, for the large part percentage-wise, they've actually lost about half of the terrain that they originally controlled at the very third month of the 2022 invasion that happened around 3 years ago. If the Russian Federation truly was as good and as invincible and legendary, or nekrasnoshimaya I legendaria, as the Russians like to suggest, they would be able to have won this war quite handily, and they would have never had to move on to the nuclear threats. We would be moving on to the nuclear threats because we would be scared of the Russian Federation. Nevertheless, it's the other way around, and it largely is showing that the Russian Federation is doing quite poorly even in its own mindset, and it's having to rely a lot more on its nuclear arsenal and nuclear weaponry to try and get the perceived level of threat that they're wanting the West to believe the Russian Federation to actually be. But moving on out of that bit of nuclear news, this sort of a nuclear sword is thrown around occasionally. It's, of course, still very concerning to see nuclear tests being conducted, but it's not that out of line for the Russians, at least for the past 3 years. We are going to be moving on into the Kursk Oblast, as we have been able to hear that North Korean generals may be on the front line very soon, according to South Korean intelligence, as South Korean intelligence has stated that high-ranking North Korean generals may be on the front line in Ukraine. According to the agency, the deployment of North Korean troops involved key officers of the FSB who traveled to Pyongyang on the 23rd to 24th of October. The intelligence agency also said that North Korean soldiers face difficulty in training due to the language barrier, so they are being separately taught more than 100 military vocabulary terms in Russian. This is a very interesting thing, as it is once again starting to contradict a little bit of the analysis that we put out here on this channel, that the Russian Federation is most likely going to be conducting operations alongside the North Koreans, but on an expeditionary force level, meaning that while the North Koreans will be fighting for Russia, they will still maintain a decent amount of autonomy and will be operated from the top down by North Koreans. The fact that they're having to be trained in Russian terminology is either showing that they're just trying to get over the hurdle of training, just trying to get them trained in the first place, or they are actually going to be commanded by Russians somehow, somewhere, which would start to suggest that they're not an expeditionary force. It is quite literally meat into the Russian army's meat grinder. Either way, however, we do understand that while they are being trained by the Russians, they are largely going to be maintaining their doctrinal form from the North Koreans, especially if we were to still work under the assumption that they will be an expeditionary force, which, while that is a little bit more unclear now than it used to be, we still have a fairly decent assumption that they most likely will operate like an expeditionary force. It would be very weird if they didn't. That would actually be against the norm, at least historically, as when the United States entered World War I as an expeditionary force, we saw that the Americans did remain completely autonomous while largely supplied by the French and the British for a decent amount of their equipment. They still were largely autonomous and operated by an American commander and a complete American command force from the top down, starting from General Pershing and heading on down from there. We have seen in the past as well that other armed forces have also operated under a very similar principle. But one thing that is interesting to note is that the North Korean command structure, and we've tried to stress this time and time again, is an incredibly bad one. It's very poor, to say the best. From what we understand, the Korean People's Army Ground Forces, which is the one that we'll be focusing on the most right here, considering that they will not be involving any air forces or naval forces at this moment, is an incredibly archaic one in the amount of equipment that is provided, along with the doctrinal sort of combat strategy or even just command structure that they have to work off of. From what we can understand, and this is also directly published by the United States Army's intelligence, this is Army Techniques Procedures 7-100-2, which is a very reliable source of public information on what the United States Army knew, at least in 2020, about North Korean strategies and tactics. they don't look that good. And from what we can generally understand, the North Koreans do not break up their armed forces into a typical westernized and reformed army structure. In the modern day, the army consists of three basic elements, and of course there are more complicated ones, but these usually only exist on an administrative level or in special exceptions. Most westernized armed forces consist of an army group level, and then the army group is broken up into brigade group levels, and then the brigades are broken up into battalions, and then the battalions then all coordinate with their brigade command, and the brigade command then coordinates with the army command to complete tasks on the battlefield. This is about as streamlined and as efficient a modern fighting system that can be produced. However, from what we understand, the North Koreans use a very different system. Actually, they work off of a core-based system that would largely be entrenched in Soviet-era doctrine from the 1960s or the 1970s, which is highly antiquated at this point in time in the modern day and would lead to a large amount of combat inefficiency if they were to ever engage in combat as an expeditionary force. The corps is broken up into divisions. Usually a corps is broken up into possibly about 5 different divisions, according to what we were able to see on average according to the ATP. These divisions are then broken up into brigades. And then these brigades are broken up not into battalions, but into regiments. And the regiments are made of several different battalions. And then finally, those orders are then disseminated from the battalion and down to the company level. The company level usually being the most basic tactical level, or at least strategic level, if you want to call it that, of the fighting system. Of course, from there it is broken down into platoons and then into squads, but nevertheless, for at least the strategic overview, the most basic tactical element is the battalion, even for, well, actually it's the regiment for the North Koreans, but from there it can be broken down into battalions, although that's once again getting more down into the North Korean mindset of a tactical unit, a lot like the United States would view a company as a tactical unit on the battlefield instead of that of a strategic unit. This means that the North Koreans' armed forces are highly slow to adapt to any kind of a change in combat situations, considering that their orders have to be disseminated down such a lengthy chain of command from top to bottom and then on the return. This means that the amount of time for orders to be issued and orders to be received and then returned back to the top if there's any sort of a change in the scenario will take an extra amount of time, considering that it has to pass through so many different headquarters of so many different echelons and I guess you could say unit levels for it to get from top to bottom. This will take an incredibly long amount of time compared to the westernized system that they will be going up against in Ukraine, which works off of the Army Brigade Battalion level. This is going to be creating a large amount of issues. Not only that, the North Koreans, if supplied and fielded in a North Korean style, will be ancient, incredibly ancient. The best way that I can explain this is to just let y'all look here at the Korean People's Army Infantry Division, which is made up of 13,000 personnel, and for 13,000 people, this division has no armored personnel carriers, and from what we can tell, it actually has no vehicles as well, beyond 31 T-55s. The 31 T-55s are pretty much obsolete, and to put this into perspective, the Russians started pulling out T-55s in larger numbers just a few months ago, and we consider that to be the Russian army crumbling before our very eyes, and this is actually what the North Koreans bring to the plate as their number one best tank for their infantry divisions is a T-55, and only 31 of them. That is for 13,000 troops. So the chances of you seeing a tank is about as rare as seeing a unicorn at this point for a Korean infantry division. Not only that, they have almost nothing in every single category. The only thing they have a large amount of are AKs. They have about 9,000 of them for 13,000 guys in the unit, which isn't that bad. I mean, still kind of sparse considering that they have about 4,000 additional guys that don't have a small arm, which is a little bit weird, but nevertheless, they do have 337 additional machine guns, bumping that number down to only 3,500 guys in the entire unit, which is about the equivalent to an entire Western Brigade combat team in the U.S. Army that just don't have a weapon. But if you were wondering, where in the world did these other guys get weapons? Well, they have a lot to share. They do have 42 man-pads, once again for 13,000 guys, so about 42 guys in this entire 13,000 man unit are providing air defense. You can kind of start to get an idea the air defense is going to be very sparse for a unit of this size, considering that they only have 42 man-pads. But alas, Of course, many people know that the North Koreans are just masters at artillery, and who in the world would not know that? And so we do have a amazing complement of artillery pieces that could be used. For 13,000 men, they do have 24 152mm artillery pieces at their disposal. This means that at any given moment on the battlefield, you will never be able to get artillery because that artillery is going to be so heavily tied up, already trying to conduct the long line of queues that had been made for North Korean units calling in artillery support, that by the time you get artillery support, you will be long dead, or the situation will have so rapidly changed the fire orders would have to be adjusted completely. However, they do have 72 122mm howitzers, just in case if you were feeling a little bit more, sparing of yourself in the name of the great leader, and you wanted to maybe spare a little extra few calibers in terms of firepower. They also do have some 107mm MLRSs. Only 27 of them, though, so it's once again not an incredibly large number for an entire division. To be entirely honest with y'all, on a brigade level, here in the West, this would actually be considered somewhat small. Like, this would be considered a little bit scant, just on a brigade level, and considering that a division is made up of about 5 brigades, this is incredibly small. Like, the amount of artillery support or any kind of support that they have is non-existent, really. This truly is, for all intents and purposes, a true infantry division. There's just nothing else there beyond infantry with small arms and maybe some RPGs. They do have 630 of them for the entire division to work with. There's just nothing else. They don't have a lot in a North Korean infantry division. So if they are being fielded in this manner, and from what we largely understand, with the number being somewhere around 12,000 North Koreans sent in the first wave, we are understanding that that number lines up exactly to that of a North Korean infantry division. If they're being equipped by the Russians the same as a North Korean infantry division to greatly decrease the amount of training needed, they're going to be provided with this kind of equipment. And if they're being provided with this kind of equipment, we're expecting that they're going to be dying rather quickly, and they're going to require an endless stream of replacements. Probably over the course of just the next 2 months, they'll have to replace at least 60% of this unit after it engages in combat endlessly to be able to keep this kind of a number just on the front lines in Kursk at all. This is a horrendous kind of a unit, and it gets worse. Like, when we actually start to break this down further and further, you get into all of the different kinds of units, integrated systems, and such things in the ATP as you would like. They also talk about special operations forces, which apparently, according to what we know, is an incredibly high number in the North Korean armed forces, but considering that we just saw what an infantry division is equipped with, I'm sure their special operations forces are equipped just about as good as a National Guard unit is here in the United States. We aren't really expecting a lot out of these people. That's really the best way I can cut that short. Maybe, for example, I can show you all this. Because this is a very interesting thing as well. Korean People's Army Tank Brigade. So remember that we're not telling about a division at this point. This is at least somewhat comparable to that of a Chinese armor division. Would it field approximately 2,500 personnel, and that includes about 2,300 officers. So there's about 1 officer for every 100 guys or so. That's about the running metric that they have. But nevertheless, equipment is once again scant in these units. For their tanks, in the entire brigade, actually, they have 93 tanks. That's not a lot. I mean, that's not a lot at all. And once again, they're T-55s and T-62s. They're not that advanced. So for some reason, they actually started fielding tank brigades because Russia is almost running out of armor support at this point inside of Ukraine. We're not expecting that much. A single tank battalion of the Chinese would field somewhere, I believe, around 20 tanks, something along those lines. I believe it's actually 30. And so considering that just 5 Chinese brigades, just 3 Chinese brigades would outdo an entire Korean People's Army tank brigade, and let me make sure I said that correct, 3 Chinese battalions would outdo a Korean People's Army tank brigade, that is pretty sad. That is actually wildly sad when you think about it, and it's really showing us that they are somewhat deficient in just about every single armor category. And of course, I'll have to go back and check my Chinese numbers in that ATP as they went through that in great detail. But as I understand it, I do believe that the Chinese are very armor heavy, but APC light in most regards. But nevertheless, we are not expecting a lot out of the North Koreans, to say the least. And while they will be arriving on the front line soon, beyond just raw manpower numbers that they can throw at the Ukrainians, we're not really expecting that they're going to be bringing a lot of superior firepower to the table to really change the situation. And so So, in Ukraine's great fortune, the frontline situation will get a little hairy, but we will not expect them to be pushed back that heavily by the North Koreans. Moving on from that, however, and into the area of Romania, we have been able to hear that Romania is finally preparing to draft and pass legislation to shoot down Russian drones over the Danube River Delta. According to the information that we have at this moment, the draft law is currently open for discussion, and they are going to be trying to see about passing this so that way Romania will have the legal authority inside of their own country to be able to shoot down the drones that cross over the Danube. This has been a major issue for quite some while now, as Russian drones attacking the Ukrainian ports of Izmail and Renai have continuously flown across the border and have detonated onto Romanian soil. This has been something that has caused a great deal of concern and anger throughout Western countries, as many people have demanded that Romania and Poland, along with many other Baltic states that have been threatened by Russian drones, shoot down these drones as soon as they violate the airspace of these countries. We have not seen that any of these countries have actually taken legit and affirmative action at this point to be able to carry through with such a belief, but nevertheless, it does appear that Romania is the first country moving in that direction, and that they will most likely start to shoot down Russian drones here in the very near future, finally protecting the sovereignty of their skies from Russian aggression, and not only that, Russian weaponry. Moving on from that, however, and into the area of Ukraine, we did get to see a supposed Ukrainian F-16 in the skies of the Dnipropetrovsk region today, right there. And that is not a supposed F-16. That is 100% an F-16. We can tell because it has a single vertical stabilizer. No Ukrainian aircraft in service have a single vertical stabilizer except for the F-16. The wing shape as well as the fuselage design is also identical, along with the vertical stabilizers as well. That is 100% F-16 that is flying over the area, and most likely one of the F-16AMs that was provided by the Netherlands, or really an F-16A modified with F-16D software. Moving on from that, however, we did also get to see that a major Ukrainian drone attack did hit a massive ammo depot inside of the city of Luhansk. And we can see in this tiny little clip right here the massive explosion that was caused. It is a beautiful explosion to see, and most likely has caused a significant amount of damage to the Russian supply centers that are keeping the areas of Seversk and Chasiv Yar supplied with munitions to keep their fights going. And for this reason, we do believe that they will not be able to continue on combat operations as successfully until they're able to secure a new supply of munitions to be able to keep their frontline forces firing, at least at a minimum. Moving on from all of this news, however, while we do not have any updates going on in the Middle East or Korea today, I do want to make sure to keep a lot of our viewers in the know, or in check for the most part, on how this is all going within this area, so that we all actually do have the information that y'all would need to kind of get an idea of what may be coming around the corner. We are hearing at the moment that the Israelis are actually going to be approving a second attack against the Islamic Republic of Iran for the attempted assassination of Benjamin Netanyahu in a drone attack that occurred only yesterday. We do not know when this attack will be coming, and at the moment we are still waiting for the Iranian counter-response to Israel's first attack that just occurred a little while ago, where the Iranians did state that they were going to be responding, and Israeli and everyone else's intelligence really in the West is suggesting that this Iranian attack will happen before this upcoming Saturday, although timetables like that are usually highly inaccurate and usually unpredictable due to the slowness of the Islamic republics of Iran's response, but we will be waiting to see if that does actually happen. Meanwhile, in the Korean Peninsula, we haven't been hearing of any increasing escalations at the moment, although tensions are still running very high. We are understanding that South Korean forces are still on high alert, as well as North Korean forces pretty much on the verge of firing onto the South Koreans, but since our last updates on that a few days ago, we haven't been getting any additional updates letting us know that things are truly about to be kicking off on the Korean Peninsula, and that a border skirmish or a greater war will begin. We are still going to be waiting, though, to see if that ever does happen. We're keeping a very close eye on both situations inside the Korean Peninsula and in the Middle East, and we all are also keeping a little bit of an eye on the situation in Taiwan. This one's a little bit of a lower alert status as far as our channel is concerned at the moment, considering that the People's Republic of China does not have the amphibious capabilities to conduct a successful landing onto the mainland of Taiwan with a large enough force to at least start off the ground invasion to actually have a great deal of success. We are expecting that this will not be a major incident until at least the next year or several years beyond that point, probably towards the late 2020s. But we are still keeping an eye on it. just in case if it is to turn into something major, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's turning into anything major, and so we'll be keeping a little bit of a less of a serious bit of attention on this. We're going to be looking towards the Koreas and the Middle East more so than otherwise, to be able to make sure that the situations in these areas isn't just flying entirely off the handle pretty much at any given moment. But nevertheless, that is all of the breaking news that we have today. I have to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching this channel. Loads of y'all have been watching this recently, and I hope that y'all been able to enjoy the short war news summary that came out today. If y'all did, please do subscribe. YouTube does not care about subscribers. Like, as far as their algorithm is concerned, it doesn't matter how many subscribers our channel has. It just matters how good our thumbnail and title hit the algorithm's requirements, and then they push the video regardless. But nevertheless, subscribers make me and Enforcer Matt incredibly happy whenever we get to see that loads of people are subscribing to this channel, because they do want to hear more news from the channel. Even if YouTube doesn't really care about that, we care about that a great deal. And so if y'all would like, and y'all did enjoy the news summary today, please make sure to subscribe, because we would be very happy to see it. And also, if you have made it to this point of the video, I want y'all to put down crunk in the comments section below. That is C-R-U-N-K, crunk, in the comments section below. Put down C-R-U-N-K, crunk, in the comments section below, and I will be going through and hearting every single one of those that comes through. Also, one last thing, if y'all would like to see this video at least reach out to some more people, because this is something that YouTube does care about a little bit, make sure to hit the like button on this video, because YouTube really does like to see people hit the like button. It lets them know that y'all really do enjoy the news that y'all are hearing, and then they'll let more people hear about it. That is actually something that does help out in the algorithms, just a full disclaimer there. But nevertheless, I thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching, and if y'all would want to support these video projects, please go support us on Patreon. Got to give a massive shout out to everyone who is supporting us on Patreon, and all of the new people who've joined Patreon recently. We are massively appreciative of each and every one of y'all, and thank y'all so much once again for supporting these video projects and helping them to be possible. Oh, by the way, one more thing. I do have to go and show y'all this, because while we usually make these plugs on our live streams, I do want to make sure that we show y'all this as well here on the video. So let me really go get this really quickly, and let me go to here. And just to let y'all know, because this is something that appears to have been of high demand, the official Enforcer store has come out with the Make Russia Small Again t-shirts. If you've made it to this point in the video, I'm sure you're probably one of the die-hard members of the LSA, so you probably would want to get this shirt. But they are, of course, of traditional Enforcer quality, made out of Gildan cotton shirts, 100% soft U.S. cotton. We are making sure to get out the Make Russia Small Again t-shirts. These are heavily inspired off of a shirt that was worn by President Zelensky in one of his presidential addresses about 2 days ago, but we saw it, and it really landed within the metrics that the LSA stands for, which is pro-Western, pro-American stuff, that we were like, you know what, we might as well make this shirt for ourselves and make it an Enforcer or an LSA shirt at large. You can get these on the official enforcerstore.com. You can actually see the hyperlink up there, and we will have a link to this down in the description below on the bottom of this video. This limited edition run will probably only be running till this Saturday, so today is Tuesday on our channel, and so this will be running for only about the next 5 days or so. So if you want one, make sure to get one in the link in the description below. They come in all loads of colors. They're pretty cool. I personally like them a great deal, and we're actually planning on making an entire series of these. We're going to make the Make Russia Small Again our first one, but then we're going to be making several others in the future that pertain to North Korea, China, Iran, and many other countries that many people don't really care about if you're in the LSA world of being a pro-Western, pro-American person. But nevertheless, I thank you all so much once again for watching. Make sure to go click on the link in the description below if you want to get a Make Russia Small Again t-shirt, and we will see you all in the next one. Long live the LSA, and I'll see y'all around.